I've sewn up a pattern that is free, and I didn't only sew one, I sewed 4 garments from it. A super fun pattern that you can add a lot of creative details to, and I love projects like that. They are easy to sew and they are for knits. Sneak peek. Keep watching. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you some easy knit sewing. I do try to intertwine the woven intermediate projects with the relaxing knit projects, just to keep it interesting, just to keep it varied, and to avoid getting tired. As you know, this is a sewing channel. I am the one sewing everything and I do sometimes get a little bit tired, so a nice way to break things up for me is to sew really nice knit projects with awesome fabrics where I can just be creative, have a lot of fun, and not spend that much time sewing. Well, I did sew 4 garments, so I did spend probably a day and a half sewing, but super enjoyable. The pattern I'm talking about today is the Uvita Top from Itch to Stitch. This is a free pattern that has been around since 2017, I believe. I was still in Bolivia when I downloaded it. But, you know, I don't ask me why I hadn't made it. I just hadn't made it. And scrolling through what I could make, I found it and I came up with ideas right away. Seeing as this is a very simple pattern, it has a drop shoulder. The sleeves can be 3/4 length or long. The fit around the hip seems to be fitted, semi-fitted from what I can observe. The neckline is wide, sort of, it looks like a boat neck type of neckline, and it's finished with binding. Straight hem. It looks like a really nice simple pattern to have a lot of fun with. So that is exactly what I've done and I've made 4 garments. This pattern calls for knit fabrics, and actually you can use 1 or 2 way stretch, meaning that your knit fabric has to stretch horizontally for sure, but if it doesn't stretch vertically or stretches minimally vertically, it doesn't really matter that much. Definitely you cannot use a woven fabric for this project. It does need to be a knit fabric, and that it needs to stretch about 25 to 50% horizontally when you stretch it sideways. French terry, cotton spandex, single brushed poly, double brushed poly, rayon spandex, ITY, you know, you figure out. I think a lot of knit fabrics could work for this style. Sizes 00 to 20 are included in this pattern, and the upper measurements for the bust are 46 inches and for the hips 48 inches. There is about 0 ease at the bust, so your knit fabric will sort of be around the same size as your bust. That's fine because your knit fabric stretches. If you did have a lot of positive ease on a knit garment, it would look a bit sloppy, a bit floppy, you know, so 0 ease at the bust is perfectly fine. At the waist there is some space, and at the hips they give you a measurement at the high hip. And at the high hip, if you compare it to the full hip, it's 1 inch less. The thing about high hip measurements, my high hip and my full hip don't measure that differently. It's not that much difference between my high hip and my full hip. So I would say that for my body shape, these would be fitted at the hips, meaning there would be a bit of negative ease at the hips. And I'm okay with negative ease on a dress, for example, but for a top that has to go over pants or a skirt or something, I would like there to be a little bit more ease. So that is something that you can always modify according to how you want the garment to fit you. So what I've done is chosen my size according to body measurement, size 14, but from the waist to the hips, I just cut out the size 16. So I blended from 14 to 16 at the hips to make sure that I was going to have a semi-fitted look. It's not a boxy look at all, but just a bit more room there at the hips so I can wear it comfortably and not have any negative ease, and so I can put jeans underneath and all that stuff. The finished measurement, if you measure from the nape of your neck to the back, is 24.5 inches, and that is a really good length for me. You know, I am taller than what Itch to Stitch drafts for, so in theory I would need to lengthen this top by maybe 1 inch or 2, but I don't want to because I like that length. It's a good length for me, so I didn't modify there. So for the first garment, I had a scrap left over from a project you will see on the channel at one point, and I'm still not ready to share that project yet, but I'll give you a sneak peek so you can see the fabric. I knew I had enough to have a top like this, about 70 centimeters, so I decided to use the Uvita top minus the sleeve. This has a drop shoulder shape. It's not a full dolman sleeve, it's like a drop shoulder, and I thought I could finish that with sleeve bands. I also decided to add a little detail on the back. drop the neckline. I'm going to show you how to do the binding on the neckline. So all those little things to see now in this like partial up close and so personal, because there's going to be 4 of them in this video.
Don't you think this is starting to wear me? You've been raining down like hail.
This is the back pattern piece of the Uvita, and just because I have enough width of the fabric, this is a scrap I have, but I have enough width. I'm going to leave 1.5 inches extra here on the center back. This is the fold right there. And I'm going to sew down a partial pleat, sort of around to there, maybe 5 inches down from the center of the neckline. And then leave that box pleat open to the back, just to do something different. And just because I have enough width, I'm always willing to try different things when I have enough fabric for that. So that'll be a detail that this one will have on the back. This is the front of the top. I know the neckline looks high, it's supposed to be. It's a little wide as well, but I'd rather not modify it and just cut it out, sew the shoulder seams, and just try it on my body, and then I can just maybe scoop it down a little bit. I know I would want it lower than this. I did cut out my bust circle there because there are some prints here that I really would not want to have on my apex, like those like dark sort of things of the flowers. So whenever I forget, I sometimes end up with issues. So I'm happy with what's there. It's nothing special. I looked on the other side as well, so I'm okay with that. I don't have enough fabric for sleeves, so I will just be using this drop shoulder sleeve, and I'm going to be attaching bands to there to finish it off. I ended up sewing about 3 inches down for that center back pleat that I plan to do as a little detail on the back. And I'm just going to open that pleat and just baste it down and then forget about it. Then I can just treat the neckline as normal. So I'm just doing a little straight stitch there on the edge to hold that pleat in place. And then I'll just put the binding on top of that. I won't let that disturb me for the rest of the construction. Now I know I wanted to lower that neckline. So once I've got the main seams done, shoulders and side seams, I can see where I want it to be, and I've put a few pins there. It's about 2.5 inches down from the original. I'm just going to fold that now, mark it, use my curved ruler and just do that nice and neatly. And it's about 2.5 inches down. What you're seeing here is the binding that I've sewn onto the neckline. I like cutting mine in the measurements that you see there, folding it wrong sides together so that I have that folded edge there. When I sew it onto the neckline, I clip around and I only use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then you can see me hand basting that down so that I don't have pins when I have to sew that. When I have it all hand basted, I give it a good press, and then I go sewing about 3/8 of an inch from the edge, and it gives you a really nice clean looking neckline inside, and I do like this. Otherwise, you know, this could also be a neckband. You know, ways to finish necklines are very varied, and you can choose to do whatever you like, really. This is the top. I love this fabric so much, and I can't wait to show you the other item I've made with this. I always knew I wanted to drop the neckline a little bit just by looking at the pattern pieces and seeing the modeled pictures and everything. I knew it was sort of like a high-ish neckline. I like that it's wide. I just wanted it lower, and you saw how I adapted that by trying it on and actually figuring out where I wanted it to be. And it's exactly there. You can see the binding there. It's super neat. I love the method of folding it in half, wrong sides together, because you get a really clean edge right there. And I have shown that before on other videos, and you can see the shape here that the drop shoulder has, that sort of shape like that. There would be a sleeve there, but there isn't one. So I wanted my bands to be shorter. I do have sort of standard measurements I use for bindings and for neckbands and stuff like that, armbands, and I'm sharing that on the screen. So it's whenever you see me add these onto patterns that don't have them, they are that same shape and size, because I know. What will vary though is the circumference. So if I measure my circumference here, 1/4 inch away from the edge of the fabric, because that's where I'm gonna sew, that's how I measure my circumference when the garment is already made. I prefer to measure it when the garment's already made. It's just much more accurate and real to measuring it on the pattern piece. And I did 85% of that length, and I put those little armbands there. Super easy to do, super easy way to finish this part there. And little back pleat there is super cute. You know, it's just something, and I thought, why not? I did have the space to do that little detail there, and it adds a little bit more ease at the hips, which I like, especially for such a flowy fabric like this. This is ITY, super cool to make, and I love it. So let's see how it looks on. This is my first top and the simplest one. I opted out of the sleeves, added sleeve bands to finish them off, lowered the neckline, did binding, and a little box print at the back. You probably can't see, but I love the feel of this top, super casual. And this was made from a leftover piece, very small piece. Got it paired with my Mountain View jeans. They go with everything, and this is a really nice combination. I find these colors with the tone of blue on these jeans. Now, because there's a box pleat at the back, there's more room at the hips there. The top is the original length. I didn't lengthen or shorten. I kept the hem straight. Sleeve bands right there. Finished the sleeves off really nice, and typical measurements I use for the width. So that's sort of standard. This is meant to have a sleeve and it's not. So it gives you like a drop shoulder effect. Sort of looks like you've got a little cap sleeve on. I don't know, I really like it. When I know I can modify a neckline by putting the garment on, I prefer that way rather than just thinking about it and seeing how much I want, because you actually never know how it's going to sit on the body. That's why I cut it at the original, tried it on after sewing the main seams and pinned, and figured out where I wanted it. It's not low or high, it's just 2.5 inches lower than what it was. It was pretty high, and I've got a really nice binding in there that you saw me sew. And at the back, you probably won't see it, but there is a little pleat, little box pleat. It's really hard to show, but it gives it something extra at the back. If I have enough width on the fabric, I'll gladly do little details like that to add something different. So I'm glad I was able to do that with this. Super love this. And you see, this was the base for me to try out the flounce sleeve I want to do in the next version. So you're gonna see this again. So the second idea was using the same pattern, taking away the sleeve again, using that shape that we have here of the drop shoulder, and drafting a half circle flounce to add on to there and to make like a tiny little sleeve piece. Now, I was very particular about how I wanted this flounce to look on the body, and because I already had my other version, the coral and brown version, already sewn, I purposely sort of batch made these because I knew I wanted to test the flounce I drafted onto something before actually cutting it out of my main fabric for the second version. So yeah, that was my approach. I am using a scrap fabric. I had a little bit left over from a talent dress I made in February. It's a pattern by Itch to Stitch. Lovely dress. I wear it all the time and I love the fabric. And finally I figured out how I could get it to become a garment as well. So let's see how that one came to be.
I did give you my soul, but you can't love something you own. It's too late to repair what we made.
I've got my top on. Ignore the black top I have underneath. I just want to see the length of this flounce that I want to do. You can see that because this is a drop shoulder style, you know, it's not even like that. So it's shorter on the side of the arm and then longer there. So I can't draft a flounce that is the same length if I want my flounce to finish even like that. So I've tied a little scrap around my bicep just so I know what is even basically. So underneath here, my flounce on this little seam will be super short, just like 1 inch. But on the middle here of the sleeve, on this taller bit there, I had my son measure me because I couldn't actually do it by myself properly. And I'm measuring from where I'm going to sew it on at, you know, 3/8 seam allowance there and to the white tie there. What does it say? 14? It won't really matter. It doesn't need to be that exact. But I know that on the middle of the flounce, it has to be around 13, 14 centimeters. and then on the inside it'll be really short. So that's what I'm going to draft on the paper. I like using this website, easycalculation.com. I'll leave the link down below. But basically here you can choose what type of skirt you want to make. I just want half circle flounce. I don't want to make a skirt. I just want a little flounce on my sleeve, so it still works. I'll just tap there and put half because I just want a half circle flounce. Circumference of the waist isn't a waist, it's a circumference of the sleeve, so the opening of the drop sleeve. And I've measured that, I've already sewn mine. So the finished measurement of it already being sewn is 44 centimeters. And the length, I don't really care about that. I'll just put some 10 centimeter length and I'll calculate here, and it tells me the radius is 13.4 centimeters. I'm sure you can work this in Imperial. So I have my piece of paper here. This is actually, I've written their fold. This is where I'm going to be putting it on the fold of the fabric. And this is going to be the long part of my sleeve that I've just measured onto myself. This bit here that will have a seam, that will be on the underarm. So from this corner there, I measured my radius and I just estimated at 13.5 because it told me 13.4. So I went and measured 13.5. And I have this quarter of a circle right there. So on the underarm, I said mine was going to be small, like an inch. I'll leave an inch and a half, you know, just for a bit of hem allowance. And then here on the top of my sleeve, I said I wanted about 14 centimeters. I'll leave 14. From there down, 14. So this will be on the fold. This will be on the top part of my sleeve, like on the shoulder. I measured 14 there, and then I'll just measure less here, 13, and then maybe 12 here, and I'll just try to even out and get smaller. 11, 10, 7. So you can see this curve is going to be like this. This is my pattern piece. I'll put it on the fold and I'll cut it twice, one per sleeve. This is the area that will go sewn onto the edge of the sleeve there, and this curved thing will be the hem here. This will be at the shoulder, and that will be at the underarm right there. I haven't added seam allowance to this. I'll just use a 1/4 inch seam allowance over there on the underarm, and it'll fit my sleeve because I've measured it, and it'll fit that circumference like that. I've cut a sleeve piece just out of scrap knits, and I'm using my coral version that will have short sleeves to just try this out. I am doing this flounce for another version I'm making. You can see I've just put the sleeve inside the armhole there and just pinned it around, and then I sewed it on with a long stitch length. And here you can see me trying on this little flounce on this version, although this coral version is not going to have this detail. And you can see that it is even at my sides. I don't have like a side shorter at the top of my arm or anything. It is even, so I have achieved what I wanted, which was to have an even look on the front on the hem, even though the flounce is not even when you look at it. So making the coral version was handy, not only to test the flounce, but also I already knew what the circumference of this part here was, because I'd already used it to draft the armbands on the coral version. So I knew exactly what to use to draft that half circle flounce using easycalculation.com. You can just type that onto your computer or your phone. I'll leave the link down below specifically for half and full circle skirts. You can tap there, full skirt, half circle, that sort of thing. You can tap on centimeters or inches and use the circumference of the sleeve where it says circumference of waist, because you know this is thinking you're making a skirt, but you're just making something to go around the sleeve, but the concept is the same. So this is how that turned out. So this is my little skirt right there, but it is actually a sleeve. Now I was really particular about this flounce hitting straight like this. I'll show you some photos I've seen online, on Pinterest, in other places, where you see a flounce but it's shorter here and it sort of pokes out. And I kept seeing that image. Yeah, I've seen that image around. I've seen people wear things like that as well. And I didn't want my flounce to look like that. I wanted my flounce to look straight. And that's why you saw me tie a little thing around my arm and measure, had my son help me, and I drafted the flounce to have that measurement on this part there to be longer and then shorter down here. So the pattern piece looks extremely strange, but it will match this. You have this shape here. So that's why this has to be longer and this one has to be shorter down there for it to be even like that. You know, if I drafted it all the same, this would end up being really short like that, and I didn't want that. So that's the reasoning behind the weird looking flounce shape. You can do it yourself as well. Measure your arm and you can change that, make it longer or shorter. You know, figuring out the radius, you don't have to do any maths yourself, because, you know, if you didn't want to use an app or a website, you would have to go into Pi and all these other things I'm sure a lot of you don't want to do. So I try to show you a really easy way that you can do that. And look, if you want to try and you are afraid to get that number, write me in the comments. Whatever you want to add a flounce to, write what your circumference is there and I will tell you what the radius is. So you can just go ahead and measure that. It's quite easy, you can do it quite fast once you get the hang of it. And it adds a detail to anything, and I love that. Because it's a rounded shape, I did a narrow hem. It's only 3/8 of an inch with a twin needle. And I did a neckband here, super easy. And I used Rayon spandex for the back and my main tropical fabric for the front. I think it looks super cool and I'm so happy with it. This is my green top made from a scrap from my talent dress. I just had enough to do the front and the little flounce sleeves, and the back is black. So it's never wrong to do that. I think it's always a good way to use up your extra fabrics. Put the nice one on the front, put a contrast on the back. This is the original length of the top. I didn't lengthen it for my height. I like this length for my tops that sits sort of here, not the full hip, just a bit above. Got it on with my oldest skirt I've made probably 15 years ago. It's a mini skirt and I love it. Black goes with everything. I've just done a normal hem. You can see with the Rayon spandex, it's a little bit roomy. It does look a little bit more roomy and I like that. And here I've got the flutter sleeves I was trying to achieve. You saw that I did test it with scraps and I sewed it onto the top I made first before this. And I really wanted this flounce to be even like this when I stand, for it to be straight. I didn't want it to be shorter here. I didn't want it to be like that, sticking out, you know. So that's why I drafted it that way, where it was shorter here, longer there. Super easy to do and super easy to customize to what you want, because you can take measurements and make this hit there, wherever you want, you know. This is what I like. And at the back, you can really tell that it's there because of the black. I think it's so cute. I really like this addition to this, and it's a really nice floaty touch there on the side. This is the neckline. I've lowered it by 2.5 inches as I determined with the first top I make. I like this much better than the one that was up higher. I usually like it a bit low, I just feel better that way. And I've just put on a regular neckband, nothing special, no binding. I just whipped on a neckband. It's the easiest and fastest way you can finish one. And I never seem to have issues with them. You know, I don't top stitch them down, I just sew them. Really like this top, and I especially love this. Super cute, love it. Oh, I could make so many of these tops with the same sort of flounce thingy and contrast back, because, you know, I've got a bag full of scraps, so this is perfect for that. And I love this fabric. When I made my talent dress, I always knew I could get a little top out of it somehow, and I'm super happy to have it now. If you know me, you've seen before, I do tend to get excited when I really like something and how it's working out, and then I start making more and like deep dive in my stash, see what else I can make. You know, it's really hard to stop. And this pattern, the Uvita Top, has an add-on pack that was released in 2018. So you have the main pieces of the Uvita Top that is free, you know, the body pieces, the sleeve, all that stuff. And on the add-on, you have other things. And all these things are designed to be used with the Uvita Top if you want to add more details, like a hood with a drawstring, has a neck piece to have like a slouchy collar, has two types of cuffs. One is a regular cuff, one has a thumb hole. Because the normal Uvita top, you just hem it up with the sleeve. There's nothing added there on the end of the sleeve. And then you have some pockets, kangaroo pockets, patch pockets, and a band if you want to make it look more sporty. You can put that on the hem. And one that was really catching my eye was the flared sleeve that is included in the add-on. So it'll fit the sleeve here the same. It just goes wider to the bottom, and I think it's designed to hit 3/4 lengths from what I could see. I purchased the add-on. The add-on is only $5. It's always just $5. So you get all those extra pieces to use with the free pattern. I think it's a really good deal. So I went ahead and got it. And I used many of these features to make the next two. For the one I'll show you next, I used the hoodie piece and the cuff for the sleeve. A few months ago, I made one of the Balboa skirts. The Balboa skirts are also from Each to Stitch, and in that one pattern, you can make like a billion types of skirts included in that pattern. And for that video, I made 4, and one of them was a mashup of several versions that were in the pattern, and I used this fabric. And I knew I had about 1.5 meters left over for some type of top. I'm going to show you how to line the hood. The wrong side of this fabric is not pretty. I don't want it to show. It's an unlined hood in the instructions, but it can be lined so easily. So I'm going to show you how to do that.
Time flashed by and I woke up on the other side of the moon. The sun don't rise on the light.
This is the hood piece that is in the add-ons pack, and you cut 2 of them. This is meant to be unlined originally, and you will see on the pattern piece that there's a line there. That's the fold line, and that's where you would fold this in and stitch it down. Now my knit fabric on the other side is not nice, and when that happens I really want to line the hood because I don't like the wrong side of the fabric showing. And that's different if your fabric is the same on both sides or it's got a nice color, you know. I wouldn't line it if I didn't have to. So what I'm going to do is I've just folded this back at the fold line. I've just folded that away because that is how the hood will be finished originally, in that size. And you can see here at the bottom it's been trued like that. That's why it's got that little shape there. So I folded that away, and then I've just cut 3/8 of an inch extra from that fold to have seam allowance. And I'm going to use my same hood pieces that I've just cut out to cut out my lining pieces. I'm just going to find some matching lightweight knit in my stash, some scrap or something, and that will be the lining, and I want them to be exactly the same. So I'm just going to use this as a pattern and put that on top of the fabric and cut it out. I find that sometimes easier. This is the main fabric for the hood, and so I've just sewn the curve there, and I've done the same with the lining inside. So that's been sewn too, and then I've just got the right sides together and matched them up here on the edge. That's where I'd left 3/8 seam allowance, and now I'm just going to sew that 3/8 seam allowance and then flip it, and voila, a lined hood. And then I'll just put this on the neckline as per usual. There will be a little overlap in the center there. You won't see the wrong side that is white, and I don't like that to be seen. The hood piece has a little mark for you to put the grommets or buttonhole if you want to, and I've just drawn that with a pen, and I'm just going to put a little bit of interfacing there. I'm actually going to put 2 layers just to make this area more stable so that the grommets don't slide when I'm trying to put them in. So I won't skip that. Then that just gets folded, and I'm sewing at 3/4 of an inch from the edge with my twin needle to make the casing, and at the same time just sew the hood to the lining together. I'm just being careful there when you get to the grommets because the metal sort of makes a bit of bulk underneath the presser foot. Once that's all done, you just need to put the hood around the neckline, match it up, stretch the hood slightly because it's slightly smaller than the neckline. There are notches that match the center front where there's about 1/2 inch of an overlap on both sides, and then you just sew around and serge, and then it's done. When you want to use the cuff pieces included in the add-ons, you need to modify the length of the original sleeve that is in the free pattern. So to use the regular cuff, you had to shorten that sleeve by 3 inches because the cuff is going to give you that length, you know. But I didn't shorten mine by 3 inches. I shortened mine by 1.5. Just, I wanted them to be longer. And also my arm is usually longer, so I didn't go ahead and just cut what was instructed there. I did a little bit less, thinking, you know, I can always just recut and fix that later. But if I cut it too short, I can't fix that. So yeah, I'd rather be on the safe side. So just prepare your eyes. And this is the fabric. Now, to place the pattern pieces on this one, I was also very aware of the circles I cut there, as I did in the coral piece, because you have these like blue type things, and I didn't want one of these things ending up on my apex. So I was very aware of that when I was cutting out. And the print is so bright. I mean, it's just so beautiful. This is an athletic knit. It feels really cool to the touch. It just feels amazing on, feels really soft. And here are the cuff pieces. The hood that I lined. I don't have the cord for the drawstring yet, but I will eventually, and I went ahead and put the grommets there in preparation to have that ready. You know, these are such quick makes. So nice to make, so easy. They're all just twin needled, and you know, just very, very enjoyable makes, and just exciting to make nice things like this in fabric that you love. And I am really digging hoodies right now, really digging them. This is my Uvita top with the cuff add-on and the hood add-on. Otherwise, the body of the top is the free one, the original length, nothing changed there. And this is an athletic knit, super striking print. I do have a matching skirt, but I think it's too much. I wouldn't pair them. I've got these also with my Mountain Dew jeans. The blue tones here, I love how they look with this tone of blue. Although jeans go with everything, I think there are some things in my wardrobe that go with them more than others. This just has a regular hem. It's the same length as all the others. I have shortened my sleeves by a bit less than what was instructed from the original sleeve to put on the cuff, because I want my cuffs to be that long. You can see that the fit is not boxy or loose at the bust. It fits really well at the bust. Then you have some space at the waist, and it's semi-fitted here at the hips. I didn't want it to be too fitted at the hips. That's why I did a size 14 and then a 16 here, because I wanted to have it like this, where it's semi-fitted and it's not really fitted, you know? Just personal preference. And up here you can see my hoodie. I have the grommets put there, ready, with the casing you saw me sew, ready for when I have a little cord to put in there. I don't have anything at the moment, but I will eventually. So that's ready, and I knew it was a feature I wanted to have. That's why I went ahead and did a little grommet there. And it's lined with black. I didn't want the white, you know, this ugly bit of the fabric to show on my hoodie, so that's why I've lined it. It does have a little overlap there. Put this little hoodie on there. Nice hoodie. I'm really liking hoodies right now. I don't know why I stay away from them for so long. I think this is the first time I've ever sewn a hood on myself in a style like this. I have sewn hoods onto bomber jackets and jackets and stuff in the past, but I'm really digging these hoods, especially in these types of fabrics and in styles that I know I can still wear with skirts and heels and that sort of thing, like more dressy. So I'm really digging the hoods right now. Super love them. So I thought I'd finish there, but nope, one more to see. Look, tomorrow, the 18th of August, is my 18th wedding anniversary. We are not going anywhere. We are not doing anything because of everything that's going on. We are not risking it. But, you know, I don't know, we'll have a sort of nice special day at home. And I really wanted something nice to wear that I was still like comfortable to wear in the home, but just look a little bit nicer. So I made, let's say, the quarantine version of an anniversary dress. And I made a really nice black dress with a knit that is not the typical knit because it's embroidered and it's so soft and so lovely to wear. And I used more of the add-on pieces for this one. I used the floppy stand-up collar that is in part of the add-ons. So I used that. You know, I am still in winter. It still is getting a little bit cold sometimes. And I mentioned I was really drawn to the flared sleeve. What I decided to do was lengthen that flared sleeve that is 3/4 length to full length and add the same cuff I had used with my hoodie piece, just to have that gathered in and just blouse over, and I could just see it in my head, and I thought it's perfectly possible, you know, if you don't like that style, you can just hem the flared sleeve normally. Because this dress doesn't have much shaping at the waist and hips, I knew I could adjust that on myself and pin it on myself, and that's why I decided to add a center back seam. I always love a center back seam for shaping, especially with dresses that I really don't know what the fit is going to be because they're not designed to be dresses. So let's see how this one came to be.
I have tried to give you my soul, but you can't love something you own. It's too late to repair.
This is the original sleeve of the Uvita, and for the long length you can just hem up normally, and that's no normal sleeve. If you want to add a cuff that's on the add-on pack, you need to cut from the edge there 3 inches up and trim. I've actually drawn the line where I trimmed mine. I trimmed mine only 1.5 inches just to account for my longer arms. So with this flared sleeve, it's meant to hit 3/4. So I want it to be long, like full length. And instead of hemming the flare, I want to gather it into this cuff. So I basically want this one to have the same length as the sleeve I already did with a cuff. So I just basically put this on top. It's another sleeve piece, but I want to have the total length there up to the blue line. So I cut out the shorten and lengthen line, put paper behind until I matched that, and then I measured and it was 5 inches. But I mean, that's just for my arms. If you want to lengthen this, you need to measure and see how much more you need. Or if you like this gathered effect into a cuff, you can also do it to the 3/4 length. I extended that grain line mark just to make sure everything was even, and then I just trued out the sides so they're nice and even. I'm going to lengthen this top into a dress because the top just goes straight down and has straight hem. I'm not going to cut and add paper and all that stuff. I'm just going to add. So I've added 16 inches so that it will reach above my knee. This is one of the sleeves and this is the bottom. They are supposed to be flared. Originally you would just hem this normally, but I want to gather this into these little cuffs. Here on the edge I've just done a long stitch length 5.0 and I've tied one of the ends there, and I just have this one here, and I'm just going to pull on one string. I didn't do a double row. I just don't think it's necessary sometimes, and I'm just going to pull and gather until all this matches my cuff, and then I'll just slide my cuff over this and just sew it around. So it can be a little bit fiddly, but it looks really pretty, and I've already done it on the other sleeve, so you can see the cuff there and all the gathers, and I think it looks really nice, so it is worth doing it. So I'm just going to make this smaller and try to just have even gathers, and then I'll just compare like that until they sort of match. I've got this gathered, this is the seam there, and I'm going to match it to the seam of the cuff. So I'll just put the cuff over this, match that seam to that seam there. They have the same width there, all the gathers inside, so I'll just go to the serger and just carefully serge this together. I have already done that on here, so this is just being serged. I am going to go and sew it with the sewing machine at 1/4 inch just to hold it down, but otherwise that's it. Really simple. Friends, I am really battling sunset. It is very dark up in the sky. It's been raining and it's horrible, so I hope I can finish before it gets pitch black. Here is my special anniversary quarantine dress. I hope you can see the fabric. It's really nice, it's very stretchy, and it's embroidered everywhere. So, you know, I do need to wear a slip underneath, and this is the collar piece there. The collar has 2 separate pieces, has one for the front and one for the back, so you have seams here on the sides. Because the neckline is lower on the front and the back, there's 2 separate pieces for them to match. So that's the difference there. It's really well drafted. I did add a sneaky back seam there because that was the only way I could get the collar piece out of my fabric. So It's never wrong to do that. And I have a sneaky back seam here on the dress as well. I lengthened it by 16 inches. My son is a great help with this because I put one of the tops I already made that has the original length of the pattern, put it on. He takes the tape measure from the edge and he measures right above my knee, tells me what the difference is, and that's how I know how much to add. It's the best way to do it. Get someone to help you and then you don't have to guess or do anything like that, you know. Very simple, all the way down, straight hem, nothing special there. And the feature of this dress is actually this. So nice and so easy to do as well. You saw me gathering there. It took a little tiny bit of time, but it wasn't excessively hard or anything. Super nice. Once I had finished the dress, like the main things, I just had the hem left. I did a final fitting and took in at the center back on the seam, took in at the waist there, and just sort of reshaped some areas so that it would fit me in a way that would follow my shape, that would just look nicer for a dress version. For the top, it doesn't matter, you know, but for a dress, I wanted it to have some shaping there. I was awoken this morning at dawn by thunder and lightning and just the most horrific storm pouring with rain. By the time it was about 9 a.m., it was still raining, but just, you know, just drops. So I took all these pictures in the rain. I had the camera under a roof, but I was actually standing there and like bing, 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 getting wet. And on one of these pictures, if you're really looking careful, you might see them. They appear in the photos like these little white streaks. So if you notice that, that's what that is. It's rain. It's lovely to be out there. So let's see how this dress turned out. Far away look at my dress with heels. It's actually raining right now. I'm getting a little bit wet, so I'll just make it quick. I needed to add 16 inches to the top because it was just a straight hem. I just added to the fabric. I didn't modify the pattern piece. And I made sure to size up to have enough room at the hips because this does go over the full hip and the original top sits sort of at the high hip. So I really like it. Very nice, and it just looks like a black dress, but actually the fabric is all embroidered. So maybe you can see my skin color through the little embroidery there. I am wearing a slip underneath, you know, or else this would be totally sheer. But it is embroidered and it's really, really beautiful when you see it on. When I look down at myself, I see all the embroidery, but I'm not sure how well you are going to be able to see that. This top had a little bit of shaping on the waist and hips, but because it's a dress, I just tried to give it a bit more shaping, just pinned it in to myself at the waist so that it's not a boxy dress, but it's not tight fitting, it's not bodycon either. And at the back, that center back seam also helps with some shaping there. I took it in at the small of my back by 3/4 of an inch. Probably here I took it in by another 3/4 on each side so that, you know, there is some shape in the dress and it's not fully boxy like the top is. Sleeves, I love them, and they are long like this. I really like this length like this. Helps this blouse over when they are long. This is a slouchy neck here. It's not that tall and it's nice and wide, you know, it's not constrictive or anything. It's just the right volume. I really like the shape of this. Really nice. Doesn't use much fabric as well, so that's another bonus. It's not a high neckline. My collarbones, clavicle right there. I feel good like this. My sleeves are all gathered into the cuff, you know, not hemmed as the original flared sleeve is, and I've lengthened it, and I really like this length like that. Really like it. So comfy, and the fabric just makes this one a little bit more special. So go ahead and get this pattern. It is free. You can enjoy it for free, and it's a great base pattern for lots of little details that you can add. I hope what I made gave you some inspiration. And if you want to get the add-ons as well, it's a great value for all those little features that you can add on to this free pattern. I will leave all the links down below. They are affiliate links. And if you purchase the add-ons, I will receive a little commission from there as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoyed it. I will see you again very soon with more sewing. Bye!